I am with Barry Jean Fontenot, the member of Team Bublé. Barry, first off, pleasure to meet you.
Great to meet you as well. Thank you.
I don't know if you've been watching a lot of your performances on the different platforms, and for I Wish It Would Rain, I saw the one on YouTube. What's it like to get all these comments? And the main comment is, "I can't believe he wasn't a four-chair turn." How does that make you feel? Isn't that kind of cool?
It's definitely gratifying to see that people really enjoyed the performance. At the same time, I saw so many flawless performances that didn't get any turns. So I'm just grateful to be here.
Yeah, so can you talk about Sam Cooke? You mentioned in the interview For the Blinds that he's your favorite singer. What makes him such a special singer for you? And then on top of that, what was it like singing Bring It On Home to Me with Bublé?
Well, Sam Cooke is just, so for one thing, we're from kind of the same region. I'm from Louisiana and he's from Clarksdale, Mississippi. So I suppose that sort of old school Southern soul tradition that I've always really, really admired. And then he wrote one of my very favorite songs, "A Change Is Gonna Come," which just floored me the first time I heard it. It was just so, for one thing, it was so so high pitched. It was so difficult to hit those notes, and he just hit them with such conviction that I don't know, it really stuck with me, and I loved everything he's done.
Barry, your music with yourself and Barry and the Fountains, you describe it as alternative and what with some soul and R&B as well. I was listening to some of the music. Can you tell our listeners and watchers what that combination is like and why did you come up with that really awesome combination?
Sure thing. Yeah, I think alternative soul is a really interesting sort of zone to be in as a writer and as a performer. I think if I had to think of something like in the recent public consciousness that it reminds me of is like it's like a do you know that show Big Mouth? The opening to that Changes. So
Yes.
that's an old soul singer, Charles Bradley, singing a song that was written by a more sort of rock performer. I'm trying to recall. I want to say it was Ozzy Osbourne, in fact. But it was just it's that sort of dissonance, I guess, between genres, just like managing to sort of combine in a place of such earnestness. Like so, I don't think they're that far off. Ultimately, alternative music in that sort of Nirvana kind of grungier vein, and soul music in the sense that both of them are sort of they're resistant to polish, I guess. They're the sort of music that has to be real. It has to be conveyed in exactly the form it comes out in.
So also in your interview, you mentioned the Chicago music scene and how you really love it and it's flourishing. For people like me not in the know, what are we missing by not going to the Chicago music scene? What does it give you personally?
Well, I suppose the Chicago music scene, there are multiple Chicago music scenes, I suppose. There's the sort of big ticket music scene, like your Lollapalooza and that sort of thing. But then the Chicago music scene that I fell in love with is, it's represented by places like Gallery Cabaret, like the former Elbow Room, former Tonic Room. When I came to Chicago in 2017, there were a lot of these sort of independent venues, and there were a lot of up and coming artists who, were there was a DIY, a do-it-yourself scene out here where people who otherwise might not have been playing music were out here acting as singer songwriters, and the place really felt a lot like Greenwich Village in sort of Bob Dylan's time. It felt like a very organic and really special music scene from Wicker Park to Hyde Park, and I fell in love with it.
What was the main lesson that you learned as far as your journey on The Voice and having Bublé as a coach? Because he seemed to really take to you from the blinds, but just wondering, what did you learn along that way post blinds?
Well, Michael is just, he's always been an inspiration to me from a vocal perspective. Ever since I heard that song "Haven't Met You Yet" when I was very young, it was one of the things that sort of started moving me in the direction of becoming a singer. And I think the voice primarily to me represents an opportunity to absolutely become as good as I can as a singer, like to really take that extra step in mastering my craft. And I think, I couldn't have asked for a better teacher.
As far as teaching and giving insights to people who really want to get on The Voice, how much work does it take within broad strokes? And then what kind of advice have you given to people who've approached you for just a little bit of insight from your perspective?
in terms of getting onto The Voice, my experience has been that you need to have a very polished product, I suppose. Like in terms of the visual presentation, and it just needs to be visible. It needs to be, you need to put yourself out there in terms of just having your videos and stuff up on social media so that people can see them. Because I was discovered fairly randomly via social media. I kind of somebody from the from one of the casting agencies reached out to me, and I was like, yeah, I'd love to. I'd love to send in an audition. So it ended up happening fairly spontaneously for me. And I didn't think much of it because it's like, so many people audition for The Voice. You never expect that you're going to actually get on. And I got a call back. I guess it was sometime around maybe March. And they said, hey, do you want to be on The Voice? And I was like, wow. Yeah, I think I would like to be on The Voice. So yeah, one thing led to another. And there I was.
You mentioned March. It's almost been a year. So when the interview package rolled out, I don't know, I'm assuming maybe June, July. You're talking about swords. I think you had 15 then. Have you increased your swords collection? Have you been too busy perfecting your craft and doing a lot of stuff? Are you still passionate about swords as well? And can you elaborate on that? So,
Absolutely, yeah. So I haven't expanded to more swords, but I have recently bought an axe, which I suppose is kind of a lateral move. But I figured I needed a kind of forestry axe because I want to do more hiking. I've got this greyhound who's wandering around right now,
it's
and
awesome.
I tend to love to kind of take her out to national parks and stuff. I lived out in Northwest Arkansas for a long time, and when I tell you the mountains, the hiking, the biking situation, it couldn't be more gorgeous out there. So that's the kind of thing that I'd like to do a bit more with my dog, but I'd also like to be able to chop firewood and kind of do those make those kinds of treks out suppose self-contained.
So, Barry, I'm assuming from your journey on The Voice, you've made a lot of friends with fellow colleagues, but then what's it like been having that friendship with your colleagues, but you've had to keep that secret for all these months. And then on the turnaround, just getting to share that joy with these friends and most importantly, your family and loved ones within the last couple of weeks. What's that surreal aspect been like for you?
It's been really interesting. So just having such a long sort of wait time between the initial filming and when we could talk about it, it was kind of crazy because we weren't going to not talk to each other for all that time, but we had to be very hush hush about it. So we would typically just sort of call one another. I remember just after Christmas, I was driving back up from Texas, and I came to back up to Chicago, that is, from Texas. And I usually take the route through the mountains because I lived in Northwest Arkansas for a while, and it's nice to kind of stop in and see those guys. But this time around, I thought I'd take the 35 up so that I could stop in and visit my friend Jalen, who just had an incredible audition. So we were able to meet up, but again, it was a private meeting, so we were able to keep in touch with each other. But it was definitely odd to sort of be together and not talk about The Voice in a way that people could hear.
Yeah, so my final question is I'm a hermit. I do a lot of interviews. I stay in my home here in Los Angeles most of the time. So I want to ask you just for our listeners and also selfishly for myself, you mentioned Northwest Arkansas. You said the mountains. Did you live up in the mountains? What was that area like? And then the second part of my question is when I visited Chicago years ago, just 2 nights stay during spring, I would tell people how much I love Chicago. Everyone to a fault said, wait till you get to the winter. So, what are those two aspects of living like for you? What has that been experienced like?
It's interesting. Northwest Arkansas is so it's kind of at the southern end of the Ozark Plateau. So you have a lot of I think by elevation they're technically not mountains, but they're very high hills. So it's a very hilly sort of terrain. You have a lot of geological features, a lot of sort of forests out there. And I actually lived for a time, so I lived kind of around the area, sometimes in Bentonville, sometimes in Fayetteville, sometimes in Springdale, sort of dotted around different parts of the mountain. I wouldn't say that it was, well, Fayetteville is again a very hilly town, but I wouldn't say that it's not super remote. It has very good highway access, so it's all right off the 49. But I think you always had access to sort of a more natural environment if you wanted to go out and camp or something. Now, Chicago, in terms of the winter, that's really the kicker. You gotta stick through a winter if you want to decide whether you want to stay around here for sure. I think I don't know. I think part of it is part of why I was able to get used to it so easily is that I think being from Louisiana, I'm used to bad weather, just in the opposite direction. So I imagine after a while, everybody kind of is interested in a bit of a change. So I'm prepared to tolerate the cold in exchange for the experience of snow.
No, no. So has the last year really strengthened your passion for what you do?
Yeah, this last year has absolutely strengthened my passion for what I do. I mean, it was always kind of a touch and go situation. I feel like I was always committed to doing music, but there's always been kind of a tentativeness about it, because it was always the second path. It was like this isn't necessarily the route that I was initially supposed to be going down. I was dead set on law school. My parents, they wanted me to be a lawyer because it was a safe pathway. It was a standard pathway to go down if you want, financial security and everything. But ultimately, music was just, I mean, they say music is the kind of thing you should only do if you can't stop yourself. I think that was the case with me.
Wow. By the way, thank you so much for your time, Barry. You have a podcast voice. Did you ever think of doing your own podcast if you ever had time? Because you have a very unique, way about you. And I think it's great.
I mean, I've given it some consideration. I've never really been able to marshal the resources together, in terms of just the other experts that I would need to bring together for that. I feel like I could do the talking bit, but I don't know about any of the other parts of it.
Barry, thank you so much for your time and really good luck on The Voice. And I will definitely follow your music journey post The Voice as well.
Thank you so much, Greg. You have a good one.
Hey guys, thanks so much for watching this video. For more movie and television reviews and interviews, please subscribe to my Deepest Dream channel. Like, comment, share, subscribe. And as always, thanks so much for your support. Take care.